welcome to my video on how to get better at Dark Souls 3. So Dark Souls 3 is a very multifaceted type game. You have the most common version, which is PvE, player versus enemy. This is where you're fighting the bosses in the computer with occasional invasions, but by and large you are mostly fighting against the computer, and therefore you're fighting against algorithms. So a lot of the things that you are going to experience in PvE is requires less skills. It doesn't, you can R1 spam certain monsters to death and you're not going to get punished for it. But there are other times where you do that same thing and you're going to get totally punished for it, and it's going to mean the end of you. So with that being said, this is, in my recommendation, this is the time period to get familiar with different builds, what feels most natural to you. Kind of understand the layout of the different arenas and areas and things like that, the different characters you're going to run into, the mechanics. Really kind of see what hitboxes are about, timing of weapons. You really want to use this time to kind of use it as an open ground to learn, because not that much is on the line, or at least when you start to hear what else there is, you're going to realize there's more. But this is your time to kind of just build your foundation, basically. I would definitely recommend working on trying to build your skills using the different move sets you become familiar with them, because they're going to be much more advantageous later. Other than that, I wouldn't expect to be some great person after PvE, and you're going to find that out because the next step to really build your skills is PvP. So you're going to run into an almost infinite amount of, I guess you could say, players and types and fighting styles and weapons and everything, armor sets, the whole thing. And so because of that, you're fighting much more diverse characters. There seems to be a more personal element when you kind of know you're fighting some other human in the world out there. And there are also going to be people out there who are probably way more experienced than you, whereas the skill levels of the bosses are relatively fixed. And the levels that you will generally fight in PvP, which is base 120, the bottom line is that you're going to find a much wider variety of attacks, positions, character styles, and it's going to be way more vast and way more complicated and way faster than PvE. So this is the next, when you feel comfortable with PvE and you really feel like you got a good build, then the time is to test yourself in PvP. And I'll totally confess, in the beginning I sucked, and so I thought I was some great person because of PvE, but then when I started to do PvP, I realized I wasn't as great as I thought I was. So I got my butt kicked for a little bit, but then I learned and I adapted and I applied a lot of the methods that I teach to become successful. And so I really focused on building my skills here, what was crucial for it. I studied it, I practiced it, and eventually I got to a place where I feel confident that I can beat 90+% of the people I'm going to fight in PvP. So, and I think that's a pretty high ratio. Maybe there's higher, I'm sure there is, but I feel pretty confident that in most PvP situations I'm going to be comfortable. So, well, that wasn't entirely true. Really good at Dark Souls and really build my skills up. Then I started doing invasions. And in the very beginning, invasions are often they can be oftentimes you just versus one person in there. But as you start to become familiar with the invasion hotspots, such as this Aldrich Faithful area here, and if you're Aldrich Faithful, you're going to invade people who are not of that covenant and come into this area, and then gang squads. Oftentimes 3 people who are deliberately there trying to farm from the invaders and just crush them with overwhelming numbers. And the majority of time you are going to be outnumbered. It could be anywhere from you against 3, sometimes 2v3, if you're lucky 3v3, but oftentimes the majority of times expect to be outnumbered. And so with that, you again have to build up a whole new level of skills. Now instead of just fighting one target, you're fighting multiple targets who have different styles of attacks, defense, hitboxes, just timing of everything. So everything becomes way more complex, and oftentimes you can't see the people who are attacked at the time. So it becomes way more complicated in terms of what you have to compute in your brain to make things work. And there are certain skills that you can build to do really well in these gank type or invasion type situations. In fact, I'll be building a video on invasion tactics, invasion builds, what I have, and then I'll go over some gank spank tactics as well, which, to be honest, this took me a long time to actually learn. I'm not going to say I was just some great person right off the bat. I wasn't. Getting my butt kicked. And then I realized I had to adjust my build a little bit, You know, how you put a build for PvP is not going to be the same for how you do a build in Ink versus Ganks. So with that being said, this is what I would consider to be the relative ultimate challenge in terms of your skill sets, is when you can take on 2 and 3 people and come out ahead. You know, then and do that consistently, you've really built up your skills. And so with that being said, this is where, you know, you feel PvP is boring, you feel like you've kind of got a good hold on that, and you really feel like you're good, and yet you want to take things to the next level, then this is what you do next. And there's a lot to learn about this, and way more calculations that you have to do in your head. So the key is just to learn what are the key things that you can do to survive, to succeed, and to make sure that these people who are dedicated to take you out, they end up getting wrecked. So, and that's what we're about. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. I look forward to your comments, and I'll see you guys on the next video.